Hi, folks, and welcome back to another sterling edition of Cigarette Burns. The rumors of our snowstorm have been greatly exaggerated, at least so far. This is my mug. There are many like it, but this one is mine. Let me show you. This is the old Wonder Woman. When you put hot stuff in this, it changes from black to what you see here. What you see is what you get, so to speak, with that one. It is fantastic. Yeah, we were supposed to get like 12 inches today, but we didn't. And so, I mean, it might be coming now, but Lord knows. And so, we'll find out. But I have come here to talk about something specific, something very near and dear to my heart in the arts, which is the refusal of accepting greatness when it surrounds you. Okay, so to speak. Okay, and that's really what the major part of this is going to be about. This will be a rather long one, so just bear with me. Because I will be talking about this particular film at length. The film is Inception. It was directed by Christopher Nolan. It stars Mr. Leo DiCaprio, who's still out there trying to save the world, one solar panel at a time, which is really great. I am going to smoke. This is my last cigarette. That's fine. Don't judge me, Eli. We've all been there, haven't we? Coffee and cigarettes. The breakfast of champions. I don't think people smoke enough in cinema anymore. They must have had some big ordeal where they weren't allowed to smoke anymore. That was not talked about, because I saw about 10,000 ads about about 10 years ago where they talked about like the fact that you shouldn't smoke and blah blah blah. Whatever. Don't get me started on that topic. But all right. So we're talking about Inception. This is the Blu-ray. I highly recommend that if you're going to get this film, you get it in Blu-ray. It is for Blu-ray. Okay. Now, where does this film fit in the canon? I would say around 125 to 150, somewhere in there. But I want to stress a couple of things about this film. All right, one, okay, period. This is one of the best films of all time, and it is definitely one of the most creative films I have ever seen in my entire life. Period. I honestly can't think of any other film that covers a subject like this. This has a business angle. They're trying to get corporate secrets by diving into someone's mind and attacking their subconscious to get corporate secrets from them, and they get paid to do so. That's what Leo's character does. It's like I never left. That smooth Laramie flavor. You know, we're not allowed to sell cigarettes on TV anymore. That smooth Laramie flavor. It's an homage to The Simpsons. But truly, I say to this, and this is no exaggeration, this film is one of the most creative films I've ever seen in my entire life. Period. It doesn't exist in a book as far as I know. Nolan may have been inspired from something. That I do not know either, but I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is one of the most creative concepts I have ever seen in my entire life. This is, and this is no exaggeration, I'm not exaggerating this, Nolan himself, he directed the Batman series, the ones with Heath Ledger as the Joker, blah, blah, blah. And that is a very, very good series. I in particular like 2 and 3, especially 3 for whatever reason. I just happen to like 3 quite a bit. 1 is definitely good too, so don't undervalue that one, just because it's the first in the canon. But this is no exaggeration. This script, with the exception of some minor plot point problems and things like that, and that he built it for an audience, so he made it a little bit action heavy. This is on the level of, I think, something that like a genius would do, and that's no exaggeration. This is like beyond the most creative concept I have seen in a long time. I can't even think of the last time I actually saw a concept this creative. The only other thing I can think of, there's Betty, there's the notorious Betty. Well, thanks for showing your butthole. Thanks, baby. They all wanted to see that. They all came for that. Okay, but regardless, what was going on here is that, I mean, other than, I can think of one other thing that was pretty creative, but it was a Japanese film. Okay, and Japanese films are allowed to get such brevity, okay, because it has such a smaller audience and it doesn't go as worldwide as United States films. And still, that film is, at its core, Akira Kurosawa's basically life poured out in dreams. It's his major dreams that he ever had, and the movie's name is Dreams itself. Okay, so it's a very, very good film, but it is tedious to watch at times. It's a bunch of vignettes about his actual dreams, and he just put them to film. So, there you go. But as far as this goes, I cannot think of anything more creative, and I would love to hear what you think is more creative than Inception. But regardless of that, it is action heavy. You will not be disappointed in the action scenes. That is just period. These action scenes are so spectacularly shot that there is no way that you can even come close to saying that these action sequences weren't the best choreographed ones that you'd seen in a long time. This comes from like the 90s, almost John Woo style action sequence shooting. The idea that it's a ballet of violence. That's kind of what John Woo thought, and that's what we get here. Okay? Again, I cannot stress how good this film is. This film is completely watchable. Completely watchable. The script is genius. I can think of a handful of scripts that have been written that are on that level. Let me think here. What's the one that's a genius script? It depends on if you want to talk about it being from an adapted novel and what they did with it, and things like that. But as far as creative, this is it. This is the most premier creative script I've ever seen written, and it can only have written in this time, because the technology did not exist for us to be able to deal with that in the 50s, and that is really why this time period exists. This kind of movie is why this time period exists, okay? Because we can do so much with visual things now, which is really, really cool. I mean, basically, they are just... This film is deeply Freudian. I'm sorry, I don't mean to drag off thoughts here, but I'm just getting into like some of the more heavier stuff here, because we're already approaching 8 minutes, and I don't want to take forever on this, especially when I talk about like looking at it through a particular lens. A lens is a fancy way of saying that this is how, if you're critically analyzing the film in a college context, this is what you'd be looking through it for. And I've explained these before. You know, there's the Marxist lens, there's the feminist lens, there's all kinds of lenses that go down and down and down that you can look at it through. Okay, now this one, primarily, as with most film, I will say, is looked through a Freudian lens. Okay, Freud was a doctor who believed in the subconscious, and he believed that way he could heal people. So he would have certain techniques. I can't remember what the name of the technique is, but for instance, where you just start talking and you don't stop. You don't filter yourself, and eventually you're supposed to get to the core of what's going on with you. I can't remember what that is. I think it's called free association, if I'm not mistaken. But this is like saying, yeah, Freud still has a part in cinema. And not only that, he can be an action-packed hero, really. You know, Freud's carrying the guns and you know, blowing people away. We like that about him. Which is like the coolest thing ever. Like if you're like a college kind of professor-ish dude, you kind of like that, you know, because you get to blow people away and still talk about Freud. And really, what's better than that? Well, lots of stuff, Jeremiah. Yeah, but, I mean, in this context. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. All right. So, you know, and also we're talking about one of the best actors of all time, which is Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay? that's in this film. This was his comeback film. He had been in a dry spell for a while. He had still been making good films, but he wasn't really on the top tier until he did this film again. But this is a masterpiece. I mean, it really is. And you may get kind of thrown away by the action and stuff in it, and be like, "Oh, I can't take this." Well, you're in a dream. I mean, what do you expect? It's just that's the way it is. Okay, so let it go. And the Freudianism in this is that we're all part of a subconscious dream when we go and sit in a theater. This is at least one of the theories of people that study Freud through cinema. Okay, so let me break this down for a second without getting too hot and heavy. Wonder Woman is still on my side. She's just headless now. Apparently I've drank the coffee enough to take off her head. Ah, that smooth coffee flavor. So, you walk into a theater. You sit down. Okay? It's dark. Okay? There are maybe 20 to 150 people in that theater that you don't know. The lights go dark. The movie starts after 8 hours of previews and now unfortunately 3.5 hours of commercial, which I would really like to point out should be taken through a Marxist lens. Why there's commercials in theater now? Okay, but that's a different subject for a different day. So you sit down, and you're completely involved in the screen that is in front of you. There is no other stimulus that is in the place other than you're eating popcorn and drinking drinks and blah, blah, blah. But let's just suppose that you're not. So this is the only stimulus that you're getting is right in front of you, this big screen. And up there is people talking, blah, 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 blah. And to you, they're bigger than you. And it's almost like you're in a dream, like you're watching a dream from a safe distance, right? Because it is a dream, because you're interpreting how to deal with reality in a way that is safe for you to be able to be empathetic and feel things. But again, you're not actually fighting a galactic battle like in Star Wars, right? You're not actually the pilot in that ship that's being blown to smithereens. You're just somebody sitting in the theater watching that pilot do it. There's a lot of voyeurism that goes into film, which is a completely different concept, which I will not go into because that would take forever. Because that is really what the deepest heart of film really is the voyeuristic tendency to watch others' lives. And some people like Brian De Palma and Body Double have played with that notion, like to really get down, and Hitchcock, of course, because Brian De Palma's Body Double was essentially like a sexy erotic thriller that was supposed to be kind of like Rear Window. All right, so back to Inception. But anyway, let me finish up. So you're hearing these faces speak, and they are like godlike to you because they're so big and they're so tall, and they speak so eloquently because everything they say is perfect and like it's in its context and blah 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 blah. So it's like you're really in a dream, and I want you to think about that the next time you're in a theater and you're sitting down. As how much of this is actually dreamlike? What does this mean to you for it to be in a theater? Is this a dreamlike experience? What is it to you? And so think about that, because I just saw Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel was fantastic. You really got sucked into that world, despite that it's been almost 11 years now since they've been making those style of films. You still get sucked into those worlds, and that's a lot of hard work, okay? That is. All right, we're already approaching 14 minutes, so I got to hurry up and get done with this, because I told you it was going to take forever, because I haven't even covered 2 topics yet, which is my bitching that this movie was universally panned by everybody but the audience. I mean, people certainly liked it, there was no doubt about it, but the magnitude of why they liked it was completely incorrect with why it should have been liked by the critics, okay? But the audience loved it. It was action-packed, it was very spectacularly beautiful to watch. I get all that. But there's something deep going on here, which is the idea of living through your dreams. And it goes even deeper than that, so don't even get me wrong. It's just, again, I only have a few more minutes to talk about this. This is a very, very deep film. You cannot take this at the surface, okay? There's a lot. Because the whole idea of Leo is that he just basically, at the end, you don't know if he's really living in a dream or not. And the director doesn't care enough to even tell you, because he thinks of that character who gives a shit. Okay, this character wanted to live in this fantasy life of being with his kids anyway because he killed his wife. So, it didn't even matter whether or not he was real or not. To him, it was real enough. He'd been living in that dream world for so long, he didn't even really know the concept of reality anymore. So, there you go. And that's very, very deep. That's just one of the many things that's part of that film. It has an all-star cast. Every single person in that film is fantastically cast for that role. Tom Hardy is the heel. He's perfect. You got to give props to Tom Hardy. I mean, that guy's a hard worker. I mean, he's a workhorse. You just set him out and he's do what I can. Now, personally, if this were Animal Farm, I would use it against him until he finally died, and then I would sell his body to the glue factory and drink to his body being useless anymore. But that's just me. I just look at it from an Orwellian point of view. So, that's maybe I'm just a glass half full guy, I guess. So then you have Joseph Gordon. I don't think that people would get how ironic and funny that is. So, anyway. There's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I believe is how you say his last name, who's perfect in that role. Kent Wannabe as the businessman / guru / kind of like the person that needs this information to be incepted in the person's head and blah, blah, blah. Perfect. Gotta love Kent Wannabe. If you don't, then you're not American. So you can leave, okay? And then, of course, Leo, which goes without saying how perfect Leo is for just about any role he plays. And then Nolan, who's a master director, definitely is. It's just beyond perfect. But again, this movie was universally panned by the critics. I don't see on this particular box if it was nominated for Oscars. I'm sure it was for some of the visual stuff, but that's not deep enough for me. This should have been the best film of the year. I really get a little bit annoyed with the Oscars not taking these type of films seriously. They could have done themselves a huge favor by giving Black Panther Best Picture of last year, and start to acknowledge that these films really do have a spine to them, okay? They have 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 years of stories behind them, okay? These Marvel comics or whatever, and this is about Inception, and now I'm getting a little off track here. But anyway, see this movie. It is fantastic. Get it in the Blu-ray or the 4K. I can't speak to the 4K because I've not seen it. It may not have been shot in a film that was able to get it in the 4K. But until then, Auf Wiedersehen.